In today's video, we're going to be discussing release patterns. So I'm going to be talking through which one is right for you depending on your club face position. This is really vital if you want to be hitting straighter shots. Stay tuned for more info. Welcome back to the TruGolf Academy. You've joined me, Jon Watts, today at Branston Golf and Country Club. Today's video is all going to be about the release, an area that gets talked about a lot, including by me, but I want to clear up what release pattern is correct for you, the golfer. And obviously, I do not know your golf swing unless I coach you or teach you online. But I'm going to be talking you through how you can check, and this is relevant with any golf club, so I'm going to be talking through today using a mid-iron, but this would still be very relevant whether we're talking about a driver, a hybrid, an iron, it doesn't matter. So depending on what club face position you are at the last parallel position, you will need a different release to try and square that club face through impact. So I'm going to be using a couple of training aids and giving you some ideas of how you could start to work on that. But ultimately, to know where your club face is at the last parallel position, you would need a camera. So you do need a recording from downline to look at your club face position. Now, there's a mix of opinions, I'd say, amongst coaches here. Some like to see in the takeaway and then at the last parallel position, the toe more up in the air, so the leading edge straight up. I would prefer to see that club face more matching spine angle. So I would say in a baseball movement, if the ball was in front of me here and I rotated, that would be a square position. But because I'm in golf posture tilted over here, that for me is a square club face position and takes less manipulation with hands to try and square the club face. So at the last parallel position, my preference would be a club face position that looked closer to matching my spine angle. What you'll see with a number of really strong golfers playing some fantastic stuff at the minute, like Dustin Johnson, like Brooks Koepka, is actually they've got the club face position at least at spine angle, maybe even more angled down, and they use very little hands through impact, so it is more body rotation, very passive hands. If you have the club face where the toe is straight up, you will need more rotation. Now, I'd like that rotation to come from body and forearms working with the body. I don't want it to be hands and arms independently, although you could achieve that and you could generate some speed from there. It makes it very hard to control this, the club head, for straighter shots. If you have the club face more open than that, and I have seen a number of golfers in this sort of position, they're going to need a very aggressive movement through impact to try and square the club face. Ultimately, you could be working on your club face on the downswing, but I'm going to talk you through the release pattern that you will need for your club face position. So depending on where that club is, you'll need a slightly different release pattern. So what I'm going to use is a tall stick behind me, and I'm also going to be using my impact ball here between my forearms. So I'll start with a tour stick. If you just simply lay this at the back of your heels, so hopefully you'll just about see that on camera. It is at the back of my heels here, running parallel to my target line. If you imagine that is a wall behind me, just straight up here, if we got the club hitting the wall first, we're having to it means we're using some real forearm rotation, wrist unhinging to try and get that club face to close, and the club would be hitting the wall first. A very passive hand release would be my handle hitting the wall first, and quite a neutral release pattern would be my hands and club hitting that wall all at the same time here. So that would be a very neutral release. Again, depending on what club face position will dictate what we need here. If we have the club face more Dustin Johnson esque, where we've got that club face pointing a little bit more down, we can actually have a very passive release. So our handle can work more to the left and the club can stay slightly outside my hands. If we have the club face a little bit more open than that, we will need a neutral release. So if we had the toe up, we will need quite a neutral release there, or potentially even allowing the club to actually pass our hands where the club will be hitting the wall first. if we had the club face where the loft is pointing more skyward, we're going to need a big aggressive move to try and close that club face, and there is going to have to be some hand manipulation to try and get that club to hit the wall behind me first. And we could describe that quite clearly, perhaps using this impact ball here, and it helps that it's actually got the two colours. So if I stick this between my forearms, if we had, and I'm going to use this as if I'm hitting in this direction now, with this at the back of my heels. So a pretty neutral release there would be the line right on the top, so I can see equal amounts of yellow and blue. An aggressive hands release with, if I had that club face more open, would look like the yellow was more on top, and the line of the ball would be tilted to the left for me as a right-handed golfer. And if I had a very passive hand release because I had the club face more closed earlier, I can actually have the blue a little bit more on top and the line pointing more to the right of the target. Now, which is right? I personally like to see more of a passive hand release if we can. Now, that does mean you need more body rotation. So if you are someone who's struggling with some flexibility, needs some more speed, but can't use your body well enough, fine, we may have the toe up and the toe up here, but let's not do it just with hands. Let's do it with hands and body rotation all together and have a very neutral release where my handle of the golf club and club hit the wall at the same time, and I can see equal amounts of the blue and the yellow. If you are a stronger golfer, relatively fit and flexible, and you can actually get that club face closed and rotate your body, then we'd get a very passive release where my handle's hitting the wall first and the line of the ball is actually tilted more slightly to the right of the target. What I want to get out of is the players having a very open club face and a real aggressive release. But short term, if you've got that club face way open, you are going to need to do something about it, and you are going to need to actually try and close that club face more on the way through, so the club would be hitting the wall first. Ultimately, I would then work on, away from the golf course, the club face position, the wrist angles to achieve that. I'm not going to go too much into wrist angles, but I have talked about wrist angles in the downswing that would be really relevant if it's something you struggle with controlling that club face, and I will put the link just up here. So make sure you check that out if it's something you struggle with. I'm just going to go ahead and try and hit one with this impact ball here, but I'm just going to be making a nice small swing, so hopefully coming up a little bit short of the water there. And just trying to get that feeling that my hands and arms are working with my body, and ultimately that's what I'm trying to achieve. Hands and arms working with my body. So good body rotation. Oh, actually I might have hit it too long. Splash. Good body rotation, hands and arms working in unison with my body. And that's a great release pattern to have. And it's a great exercise having that cane just at the back of your heels. Imagine that's a wall that you're getting your hands and club hitting that wall at the same time. Or just simply using an impact ball, or even just a kid's foam football, and you could draw a line round it or something along those lines if that as a visual helped you, that would be getting that ball straight up. What I don't want is the very handsy release unless we have to, which is this way. I'd like that. Or even this way where we've got a very passive release because we've got the club face in a position where we don't need to manipulate with hands and arms. And again, that would be the club face pointing a little bit more downwards. So we could even go, I'm probably going to end up using two balls here, or losing two balls here. I could do a very similar thing and get my club pre-impact at that last parallel position, small pump movement, and turn from there, and again feel that my body and arms are working together, that I'm not having to manipulate as much with hands and arms. But again, depending on where that club face is, will depend what release pattern you need here. If you have got that face way open, you are going to need a stronger release, more hands and arms, and that's fine short term, but don't expect to be playing really consistent golf from there. Potentially go back to working on that wrist angle and that club face in the backswing, in the downswing movement. worth always getting it on video, checking your position, checking where you are. It's great to see what you're doing when you're on the range. So get into this position here, small pump movement, and then just turn, hands and arms working together, and I feel like my hands and club have hit the wall together in unison at the same time. So it's a very neutral release. I hope that video's helped. I hope that's cleared up what you're going to need depending on your face angle. The face is really critical, and a great checkpoint is that last parallel position where the club is at last parallel to the ground. If we get that club face position very neutral there, we don't need as much hands and arms through impact. If we need some more speed, fine, we may be getting for the toe straight up, but let's try and get the toe straight up at the equal position on the way through there. Let's not do it from just hands, let's do it from body working with your hands. If you did enjoy the content video, if it has helped you, make sure you hit the thumbs up and do subscribe to my channel just to show your support, and make sure you check out all those videos that come every Tuesday and Thursday, as well as some Saturday specials.